Welcome to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher, where we take you behind the scenes with peak performers to learn what makes them tick and discover how you can apply their lessons to your life. I'm your host, Molly Fletcher. Today's guest is Arizona State University's head football coach, Herm Edwards. Herm and I first connected a few months ago when we had the opportunity to share a stage at a national conference. And listening to Herm's message, I loved how he was able to take decades of leadership lessons from the world of football and apply them to business leaders in a very real way. Herm has played in the NFL, coached in the NFL, and most recently served as an in-studio analyst for ESPN. Now he's back as the head coach for the Arizona State Sun Devils. Today, we're going to dig into how to build strong organizational culture, the importance of embracing change, and the keys to execution. This one is a playbook for leaders in any field. So let's get right to it. Here's my conversation with Herm Edwards. So, Coach, it is such a pleasure to have you on. You know, at the time that you were hired at Arizona State, they called you the CEO of the program. And so you don't hear that a lot when people talk about football coaches. Tell me what that kind of means to you and maybe how that changes the way you approach things.
The approach is the same, whether it's the CEO, whether it's the head coach. When you think about delivering a message to a team or an organization, I think when I look at leaders, any great leaders that I've always followed or watched, they're the dealers of hope. When you think about the word hope, what does that mean? It's the most powerful and maybe most energizing word we can use. It also brings excitement and anticipation for the future. So I think if you go along those terms, I think that resonates through the people you're trying to lead. And then you have to show them ways in which that can be accomplished.
Right, because hope without a plan is just a wish, right? Isn't that a saying?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think when you lead, the first thing you realize is that leadership is really a service position. You serve them.
Sure.
You have an obligation to serve the people that you're leading. It's not the other way around. And I think it starts with a consistent message, and you have to be a good listener. I really believe that. And you mentioned it. You know, we are all goal-orientated, but a goal without a plan is a wish. And until you realize how to achieve the plan, it's very difficult to set goals. You have to have a plan. I mean, everyone is goal-orientated, whether it's numbers, whatever it may be. But how do we achieve that goal? There needs to be a roadmap.
Amen.
Of how you go accomplish that.
We have a lot of leaders that listen to this show, and some of them may be new in their roles. And so kind of get me inside of the first few days, right, at the job at ASU. And what was your approach? How did you attack it? Yeah. Yeah,
the approach was very simple. It was the people that you delegate responsibility to, they have to be on the same page. And as you know, in the coaching profession, you can't be in 7 different meeting rooms. It's impossible.
Sure.
So with that being said, I thought the first thing you had to do, and I've been in this role before, you actually had to send your message through the coaches. And with that being said, we all had to be on the same page. So it was really coaching the coaches even before I got to the players.
How'd you do that?
Well, because you have to obviously talk about your philosophy and what you want to do and what you're trying to achieve. And then from there, in their own words, they have to really spread that philosophy in the rooms. And I think when you think about it, whenever you come in new, there's always change being taking place. With change, it comes time. There's a time commitment. And time is a precious commodity. And when the cost of change is time, many resist because they got to learn new things. Our profession is kind of interesting because in football, there's always change. It's constant. It's whether it's changing players, coaches leave to go other places. But I think the most important thing you have to realize with change is when you change, you must focus on the value of that change.
The why around it.
Right. If you understand that, then you really can get to the heart of the situation.
So when you think about that and you think about culture, which I know obviously is a word you use a lot and is important to you, and tell me a little bit about how you go about sort of shifting, in addition to it taking time, shifting the culture inside of a team, inside of a organization. What have you seen work? What are the values that you instill there?
Well, consistency,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing that I really hopefully it resonated to the players, and it's on the back of their shirts when they work out. Words and actions, do they match up? I'm a big believer in expectations, not rules. I think when you say rules, that's almost a negative connotation. When you say expectations, that's for people to achieve. So let's just say, for instance, whether you're at home and you're raising kids and you're the parent, you say, look, you have to be in by 12 o'clock. Well, as a young adult, you're going 12 o'clock. Well, that's the 12 o'clock rule, huh? No. If you say, I really expect you to be in by 12, that's almost a goal. You're setting a goal for them. Can you achieve this? Can you be home at 12? I'm saying the same thing, but that's what I expect, rather than this is what it is, right? So I think it's a little bit of word playing, but it goes a long way. I'm a big believer in this. Told the players this. I said, there's one thing we all struggle with is our priorities in our life. And I said, the first thing you got to realize is when you get involved in this thing called team, there's a lot of people that are involved in this. And with that being said, I said, the only thing that I'm going to tell you today is real simple. Be on time. And number two is be on time. And if you can do number two and number one, the third one takes care of itself. Be on time. And that tells me that you understand their priorities and that it's important. Because when you're not on time, that kind of tells me where it kind of stands with your priorities. And, that's the hardest thing, to juggle those things. And then you have to make sacrifices when it comes to priorities.
Sure. That was my next. I wanted to ask you about expectations and rules, and I love that sort of quote and really mindset that you live by. Tell me about a way that maybe that showed up with your guys as a coach over your career and your life. The difference between rules and expectations, I think, is so distinct and so powerful. Is there a story that came to life and how it worked for you?
Well, I think when you take over something, expectations are okay. When I first became a head coach, expectations are we want to win a division, we want to get in the playoffs. Okay, well, those are the expectations. Well, how do we go about doing that? And there's some struggles in that. There are some struggles. There are some struggles when you're trying to compete to win something or trying to achieve a goal. And this is where the two type of people that you get involved with is very, very important, and knowing the distinction between the two. There's people that are interested and there's people that are committed.
I love that line. Yep.
Most people are interested because they want to weigh the odds so they can continue to be interested. And when it doesn't go in their favor, they basically walk away from it and get interested in something else. Well, I told players, if you're an interested player, this is probably not the place for you. You need to be committed. See, because commitment it's like your faith. You walk by faith, not by sight. And there's a commitment to saying that I'm going to stay in this because I'm willing to give up whatever I got to give up. And when the hard times hit and other people are committed just like you, that's the strength. That's where you gain your strength. When people are interested, you see a lot of people, all of a sudden disappear.
Right, because it's easy to be interested, right? I mean, that's kind of easy.
That's the easiest thing in the world to do is be interested. It's kind of like the teacher. I'm really good when it's an open book test.
Right.
Because I know what I'm going to score, right?
Sure.
But that's not the one we want. We want the guy that's committed, because when you're committed, it says, you know what, I don't need to know the score before the game starts. And I don't need to know how hard it's going to be before it starts. I'm committed to this.
One of the things you talk about is how, and you talk about this in your book, that you believe in treating all your guys fairly, but that doesn't necessarily mean you treat them all the exact same. Tell me how you balance
no, you don't.
this.
Well, it's really easy because in the pecking order, especially in football and in life too, I mean, it's not fair. And if you treat every guy the same way in this sense, and this is why I say, look, I treat everyone fair, but I don't treat everyone the same, because the fairness is what players want. So let's just take, for instance, it's a rookie. He's never been in pro football. He walks in the door. He's a first-round draft choice. He's excited. Well, I got a 9-year veteran who's been a professional football player for 9 years. I trust him. I'm going to treat him different than a rookie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's paid the price to become a professional football player.
Right. Sure.
I know that. I watch his habits. I watch what he does. A rookie, I have no idea what he's going to do. How can he be treated that way? So it's almost an extension of saying this. When you become a pro, and I'll decide that, you'll be treated like that guy. But until you become that guy, I'll treat you fair, but I won't treat you the same.
What advice do you have for leaders who maybe are trying to change a culture inside of their organization, right? They maybe want to make a pivot. They want to make a shift. What would you tell somebody like that to do?
Well, I would tell them this is obviously you have to have a plan. And, you know, when you think about change, you tell people the reason for this change is that, in my estimation, when I look at all the talent in the room, it's not reaching its potential. Because as a leader, the one thing you cannot do, you cannot give people talent. That's a gift. Now, what you can do, you can challenge their talent in a way where they can have more success. And this is why, you know, when you look at it, it's called KYP. That stands for this, and it's very simple. Know your personnel. Know the people that you have on your team and put them in position so they can be successful. That's the John Lynch story. When we went to Tampa, John Lynch was playing linebacker. And we got there, and former GMs and them said, I don't know if he can play linebacker. He might not make this team. And I said, well, first of all, let me have John Lynch, because he's not a linebacker. He's going to play safeties for me. And they said, what? I said, he's playing safety. That's what he is. He's a safety. And in my system, I shouldn't say my system, in our system, and Tony was the head coach, he's going to be asked to do this. Well, if you look at John Lynch's career, he's a pretty good football player. But there was one point in his career where people were questioning, could he play the game of football? He could play the game of football. But he wasn't talented enough at the linebacker position, but he was talented enough at the strong safety position for what he was going to be asked to do. So here again, it's KYP, know your personnel. And then you have to understand this. Once they know that and you define their role, then they're going to be asked to do their job. And not only do their job well, and do it with energy and effort. And that becomes the pivotal thing then. Because then they can do their job well, because they're excited about their job, because they see you put them in a place where they can have some success.
Mm-hmm. Well, they got to believe that too, right? So they've got to believe,
yes.
Yeah, they got to believe that. Sure.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
You know, when you think about culture and you think about recruiting, right? You're back in the living room now, talking to guys, right? And obviously you have such a gift for that. But what do you look for, right? When you think about pulling a guy out of a living room, right, and dropping him in your program, in the spirit of making sure that he connects, that he is going to be a person that sits inside of your culture and makes everybody a little bit better?
Well, first of all, he has to be comfortable in the culture that he's about to enter. And the first thing I want to find out when I walk into a home is very simple, is what are the dynamics in that home,
mm-hmm.
and who has the last say, and who is the decision maker. And then I want to know how he functions outside the home, and what are his ambitions, and what are his goals. You know, I'm a real believer in, what do you aspire to be? You know, what do you want to do with your life? Not this life as a football player, but going forward after your football career is over. What would you want to do rather than just play football? And I think when you get into that, you get into a whole different conversation, because a lot of them don't even think about that. You know, they got short-term goals, and I say, that's short-term. What's the long-term goal? because I'm here to show you how to achieve both. That's my job, to make you a complete person when you leave here. The college experience of being a student athlete, that's important to me. You have to use football as your vehicle. You can't allow football to use you. You got to use football. And I think when we understand that and we come to that conclusion, they understand that's how you complete yourself.
So you want to know what's inside of their heart too, not just what they can do on the field.
I want to know what makes them function. Yeah, I want to know what makes them function off the football field as well.
Sure,
That's very important.
I had Dabo Sweeney on the other day, and I said, and one of the things he talks about is serve their heart, not their talent, which is sort of what you're saying, right? I mean, you want to know. Well,
yeah, because some people, it's like the old saying, some players, they like what football gives them. Mm-hmm. They don't really like football. They like wearing the jersey and all that other stuff, but they don't like, football's hard. I mean, it's one of the only sports you ever play where you actually practice more than you play. You have to like the preparation of football. Mm-hmm. Football is about preparation. I mean, right now our kids are working out. We don't play until the end of August. They're not going to play a game. Right. They're working out 4 days a week.
Right. And
there's no fans in the stands. It's hot. They're running. Yep. There's no touchdowns. No one's writing about you. You got to want to do this. This is hard.
Oh, for sure. What are the things that you look for inside of a kid to get clear on how committed are they? How interested are they, right? Like you're going after guys that are committed. But there's variables inside of commitment, right? Like how do you...
Well, do they, do they love football or do they love what football provides them?
Got it.
There's a difference.
How do you tell? How can you tell?
Well, you can tell. The first thing you find out is when you talk to his high school coach. Okay, what type of guy is he when he's not on the football field, when he's not in the game? How does he practice? How does he prepare?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Is he all into this or is he like a part-time football player? See, you can't be a part-time football player.
No question.
You got to invest something in this.
Right.
I've always said this. My big deal with people is this. Is the prize that you're going after, are you willing to pay the price?
And I think that plays into, corporate America, of course, too, right? I mean, are you interested or committed? I mean, you can't be a part-time leader, right?
Oh, no doubt. There's no doubt when you think about corporate America. And I just came back from an event that I actually talked to a bunch of advisors, financial advisors, and I told them this. I said, that when you think about what you do, you may have a lot of answers and you may know numbers and all that's great, but I think what people are really looking for in anything we do, whether you're a coach, a financial advisor, are you a person of integrity? Do your words and your life match up? Because eventually what we do in the dark always comes to the light. And when we're faced with conflicting thoughts and desires, you can never compromise your integrity. That's not an option. It's making the right choices in an ethical manner is a long-term investment for you as a leader. That's important. And when you break your word, you break something that can never be mended. I tell people it's very simple for me. I've always tried to allow the integrity in my life to be my referee. That's my referee. That's the official that officiates my life, my integrity.
Mm-hmm. And you're clear on that.
Yeah, and once I understand that, I've got a direct path in how I live my life and how I function. And that's, once you set it up that way, you kind of understand, okay, this is the road I'm traveling. I'm going to travel this every day. This is my destiny. This is who I am.
I heard you say once that discipline, is everything, and that without discipline, a lot of great things aren't going to happen in our life.
Yeah, you have to have an inner discipline that won't allow you to get sidetracked, because it's very, very advantageous out there in this world. That there are all type of distractions, and there's certain things you never compromise, and for me, it's never my integrity or my values. That's not an option for me.
Right. When we think about football, when we think about sports, when we think about life, right? I mean, we're all going to embrace or deal with and hopefully embrace adversity and have setbacks and have things and circumstances happen. How do you help people kind of see beyond that and stay true to the vision?
Well, I think that's what really kind of defines who you are, is your hardships that you deal with and how you deal with them. And the good part is when you're immersed in a team, I've always said this, we will stumble at times, but I won't allow you to fall.
Mm-hmm.
You will stumble, but I won't allow you to fall. That's my job. You know, what's unique about athletics, I mean, I was thinking about this today because I knew I was going to come on your show. And I really, as I sat there and pondered this morning, my thoughts, and said, you know, what makes this thing, athletics, so interesting, and why have I always loved it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're an athlete or a coach, you live in this protected bubble. I call it the bubble.
No question.
You just do. You live in this bubble
No
because
question.
it's different. You know,
Sure.
And when I really thought about it, I said, you know, the promise you get of being an athlete is very simple. You're given the opportunity to compete on a level playing field. You will not be judged by the color of your skin, your beliefs, your religion, or the zip code in which you live.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wonderful thought.
Amen.
That's just a wonderful thought.
Well, it is. I mean, let me ask you this. I mean, when we think about people that have influenced your life, which you've had some amazing, from your dad to Tony Dungy, you know, tell me a little bit about the influence your dad had and how that shaped you as a man.
Well, my father was not a man of many words. He was a man of discipline and beliefs, and you know, when he spoke, you listened. And I think maybe the most important thing he told me in life was that in life, as we gather possessions, because we live in a world, they say possessions are the things that other people see and they judge us by our successes, okay, or the notoriety we may receive. He says, son, that's all fine and dandy. He said, but I'm going to give you something more important than that. And he says, I'm going to give you a good last name. And he says, your marching orders is when you hand it to your children, you have to do like I've done my whole life. I hand it to you in good standings. He said, and whatever you do in your life, your last name is Edwards. And that's the most powerful possession I can give you as a father, that I'm giving it to you in good standings. And with that being said, every time you do something, you represent the Edwards family. Not only my name, but my father's name and his father's name. And that's the generation of our family. And he said, that's the most important thing I can ever give you, son.
Wow.
And he was exactly right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because when you think about it, that becomes your legacy. When people say your name, what will they say? That's what my dad said. He said, hopefully they'll say this, that you made a difference today with tomorrow in mind. Whatever you decided to do, whatever your chosen profession was, did you make it better for the people that will follow you? I've been fortunate. I've been in athletics my whole life. I am an ambassador for the game of football. And when I coach it and when I played it, I've always said this, I have to honor the game of football. I have an obligation to do that.
And with your last name on your jersey too, right?
That name belongs to the Edwards family. And when I wore a helmet, it belonged to the organization or the team I played for or coached for. And they go hand in hand. And I think sometimes people in the world, they view athletes as having a legacy. And I tell people all the time, we all have a powerful legacy. Any occupation you decide to endeavor in, and you do, your last name is attached to that organization and that company. And you represent them, you know, and you got to do it right. Regardless of whatever the outcome is, just do it right. And then you can leave knowing everything I had in me, I gave to these people. And that's all you can do.
What was a defining moment in your life? I mean, I know you've probably had lots of incredible moments, but what's a moment that really was...
The defining moment, I tell people this all the time, the defining moment of my lifetime was at a very young age, like most kids. You have these dreams and you have these expectations and you have these goals. And my goal was to be a professional athlete. And I was going to be a football player. And no one was going to talk me out of that. And when I got introduced in Philadelphia in 1977 as a starting right corner for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I stood in that tunnel before my name was introduced, That was one of the most gratifying moments I've ever had as an athlete, for this reason only. When I walked through that tunnel and I was introduced and I jogged on that field, I was jogging on that field for not just my family's name, but for the community and for the coaches that have coached me along the way. I was running into that stadium with all those people on my back, going, I'm carrying you in here. I didn't do this by myself, because I knew a lot of people in my lifetime that helped me get there. And that was the most joyful I've ever felt, because I accomplished something that sometimes, it was difficult and there was ups and downs in my road to get there. But when I actually, that first game, when they introduced the defense and I ran on that field, I went, boy, I'm carrying a load, and I'm carrying a lot of people in the stadium with me. And that's what I've always thought about any job I've ever had. And I've been fortunate because I've never had a job. I've been in football my whole life.
Right, where you love it.
Yeah, I've been on recess.
I know, but you know what's so cool about what you just said is that, here you are, a young guy, and you're running out there not thinking about I'm the man and I busted my hiney to get here. You're thinking about everybody else, right? Which I think is
it's always about somebody else.
Right.
Because you don't do anything by yourself.
Right. But unfortunately, a lot of kids today running through that tunnel probably aren't going, man, mom and dad, thank you. Hopefully there's more, and I might be wrong, but boy, if we could have more kids running through that tunnel thinking what you were thinking, and maybe picking up the phone after the game and calling all those people and saying, hey, thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Because you're right. You don't get there by yourself.
That's important. All those things your parents did for you to help you get there, all the sacrifices they made for you. And I know all the sacrifices my mom and dad made for me as well. So
yeah, I'm going to give you another one, though, Coach, right? So the other defining moment in your life, just in case your wife listens, was your first dance, just so you know.
You said what? Your
first dance.
Oh, yeah.
At your wedding. Just so you know. And when the kids were born, those were, just wrap those in there.
That doesn't, but you just said as an athlete, that was a defining moment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no.
And obviously, when I married my bride, because I was nervous, I got married late. I didn't get married until I was 46. I said, I'm running out of time.
Right.
I better find somebody that wants me.
Oh, well, you did. Well, so tell me this, football obviously is a game of execution. You got to execute, right? You got a game plan, you got to execute. What are some of the keys to execution in your mind?
Well, for me, it's when the moment of execution occurs is that it's repetitive and you've done it before and you're in a relaxed state. I've always said the game of football is interesting because it's chaos within the frameworks of 4 seconds. And how do you deal with chaos? It's organized chaos. And I think the more calmer you can be in the most pressure moments are the guys that generally have success. I'm a big guy in visualizing things and trying to see things. And you see yourself being successful. And that's what I always tell the players, And you gain the success and the confidence of that through your preparation. And it starts weekly. It starts after the game. When that game's over, you have a little bit of time to celebrate, and then it's on to the next game. It's on your preparation, and there's a routine in that. There's a routine in the things you do. I'm kind of routine orientated, where I get up every morning and there's a routine that starts my day, and that gives me confidence in what I want to do. So I just think you have to find your routine that has made you successful. And now, are there some changes every once in a while? Yeah. But once you build a foundation, then you have a direction.
Which is harder to handle, do you think, success or failure?
Success.
Okay. Why?
Yeah, because how do you handle it? Mm-hmm. How do you handle success? With more success, the more humble you have to become. Mm-hmm. And the more successful you are, you add people to your list of accolades. As I said, it's like being a leader. It's service. It's never about you. It's about the people that you bring along with you. I've always said, there's a difference between giving a hand out and a hand up. You always want to give a hand up and bring people along with you. It's more fun when people enjoy success together. It's much more fun. It really is.
How do you make sure complacency doesn't creep in, right? What are some of the things that you do to make sure you never become complacent?
Well, because you're never satisfied.
Right.
There's always another goal. There's always something else you can achieve.
Is that just inside of you, Coach? How do you know when to
keep
going?
I think any driven person can't be complacent.
Right.
Because you know what it took for you to get there, and you got to realize that somebody's always behind you trying to take your spot. Yeah, it's almost, here's what I've always said. the winning you enjoy, but I hate losing. I hate losing more than I enjoy winning. I don't like that losing feeling. I fear losing. The winning part, I expect to win. That's why you do all the preparation. But I hate losing. I don't want to feel losing. I know how that feels. It's just, wow.
Well, and what I'm hearing you say, right, is that when you're working hard and getting after it, that's better than the feeling of losing, right? My daughter I was picking her up from tennis the other day, and she's running sprints, and she sort of looked at me with this face, and I said, what do you want more, right? You want to win, or what do you want less, right? You want to lose, or do you want to feel, this grind, right?
Yeah, because winning comes to a point to where you win and you go, okay. I mean, it's like that's what it should feel like. But this is what I like about winning: is there's this joy that you feel for everyone that you're involved with. It's for me as a coach, the joy of walking into the locker room and looking at guys' faces and watching my staff. I enjoy that more than anything. I don't even know if I enjoy it as much as them, but I enjoy watching them.
Yeah, that's so cool. That is.
It's not so much I won. We won the game. It's I enjoy watching the experiences of the players and the coaches. That's why I want to win so bad.
You've been around sports all your life. You've had amazing moments. What do you think is the greatest gift or maybe lesson that you learned from sports, from football?
Well, the relationships.
Yeah.
Like my football coach, my high school football coach. He's one of the most important men in my life, with my dad and Dick Vermeil, my college, my pro coach.
Wow, awesome.
There's so many things I learned from them men. I mean, my first football coach, my high school football coach. When I go home, I have lunch with him about every 2 months.
What'd you learn from him?
Just the discipline.
Got it.
I learned how to play football under that man. He was my first teacher. He was like my first teacher. He taught me the game, and he taught me the importance of how important the game was, and no player or coach is bigger than the game. It's always about serving the game of football and making the game of football better. And when you're young, you got your own agenda. You want to be a star, you want to do this. But as you continue to grow in football, you realize, hey, man, this ain't about me. It's about my teammates. It's about, I don't want to let my teammates down.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that fills you up more.
Yeah.
Hey, Coach, you've been so generous with your time. We end with a rapid fire section. So I'm going to...
Okay, give me a rapid fire.
All right, you ready? All right, one word to describe you.
Passionate.
One word your players would use to describe you.
Ooh, I would hope integrity.
Okay. What's your favorite book?
Oh, it's not even close, the Bible.
Nice. What advice would you give your younger self?
I gave myself this advice. Always bet on you. That's good enough.
Okay. So the show's called Game Changers. So one last question for you. Who's a game changer in your life? And you've sort of talked about it a little bit, but who's sort of one person in your life that's a real game changer that inspires you, and why? I
didn't know the man. I never met the man. But I read the book and I watched the story. Jim Thorpe.
Wow, okay. What inspires you about him?
I wanted to be an athlete like Jim Thorpe. Mm-hmm. He inspired me to be an athlete. When I saw that movie and I watched that guy, I said, I want to be just like that guy. I want to do everything. And that's what I did. Growing up, I did every sport. I said, I want to be that guy.
Uh-huh. So you mirrored him. You emulated him.
I mean, I was like, this guy, Jim Thorpe, he's unbelievable.
Uh-huh.
I mean, to me, he's the greatest athlete you ever watched face of earth, in my opinion, still right now, for me.
Wow.
For me.
Yeah.
Because of what he accomplished.
Sure.
The time he accomplished and how he accomplished it and his upbringing and where that whole deal. When you read his story, it's magnificent. Most people don't even know Jim Thorpe. They say, who's Jim Thorpe? I said, probably the greatest athlete ever walked the earth.
Wow, which when you think about the guys we got in the world today and the ladies we got in the world today, wow.
If he was in social media today and he did what he did back when he did it, just think about how we would look at that guy. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Hey, Herm, you are awesome. Thanks for what you do for the game of football, for what you do for young people and for the world. So you are just a gift. So, hey, I'm cheering for you this season, all right?
All right, I appreciate you.
All right, awesome. Appreciate you too. Be safe.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, as always, for listening to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. There you can listen to previous episodes and leave us a review, which helps other people find out about the show. For more about me, visit mollyfletcher.com. Until next time, stay curious and be bold.